Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Homestand NHL Show. I am your host, Celine Trimarchi, and joining me today is Stevie from North Star Bets. First things first, Stevie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. It was a fun slate of hockey last night on Thursday. The weekend got some good games on tap, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what's in store.
Oh, yes, this weekend's going to be lots of fun, especially with Edmonton and the Leafs. But before we jump into that, let's kind of backtrack a little bit and talk about the Leafs' performance against New Jersey on Tuesday. So, obviously, they came back in the third. Really, that's where all their adrenaline was. They ended up taking the game 4-3. So, Stevie, what were your whole thoughts on the team's performance?
Well, I think the effort in the third period is really the main talking point. They battled back, and you saw players step up with guys out of the lineup. No O'Reilly, no John Tavares. A guy like
Yeah.
Michael Bunting steps up and makes a couple of really nice plays in that third period, scoring the game tying goal. And then also afterward, kind of little lifts his foot up to get the pass to Matthews. It was a really nice little subtle play, but it got the puck to Matthews to
Yep.
put home the game winner. So I thought I was just really impressed by the effort. A game on the road at the end of a long road trip. They didn't quit and they got the 2 points.
No, I completely agree with you, and I feel like I always say this, probably every single show, but I feel like every Leafs fan will say this. As soon as the Leafs have the lead, or if they don't have the lead, they just kind of give up. You notice that with the team, they just stop trying. But this game, they persevered, just like Austin Matthews said, and they came up big, especially in the third period. It was a really solid performance by the team. Samsonov was standing tall in net as well. He made 30 saves on 34 shots. And right off in the first period too, like with Hughes's shot, like he's been coming up clutch when it comes to times like these. And that's something that I feel like lots of Leaf fans are very excited to see, although he's most likely only going to be here for the end of this season, then wherever the season takes him in the off season, we'll see where he ends up next year. But right now, he's been playing really well. So kind of going off of that point, would you consider him to be a starter come the playoff times? Are you gonna kind of more depend on Matt Murray?
I would say Samsonov is the 1A in this tandem. Murray, he did miss some time with injury, but his numbers just aren't as nice as Samsonov's. And it's funny because the two goaltenders actually have some pretty stark home road splits. Samsonov has been very good at home, which made Tuesday's outing against New Jersey a surprising positive because he
Yeah.
was really solid in that game. And Murray has actually been better on the road than he has at home. So you've got this kind of weird dynamic between these two goalies that it's strange to see a goalie playing as much stronger as Murray is on the road to compared to home, but that's just the way it's been. So for the Maple Leafs, I think you got to roll Samsonov because his numbers on the whole are better, but it's not bad to have a guy who's got a couple of cups under his belt waiting on the bench in case things go wrong in the playoffs.
I feel like Keefe could go either way with this. I mean, you could start Samsonov or you could start Murray, but I feel like you're just going to have to depend more so on the player who has more playoff experience, which is obviously Matt Murray. I mean, if you take it back a couple years ago as well, Carey Price, 2019, everyone thought that the Leafs had this in the bag. I mean, Price wasn't having a great season. So we're like, the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Montreal Canadiens, we got this, no big deal. And what happened? Price came up big time, come the playoffs, and we did not, even come to play, it seemed like, because we all thought we had that game, but we clearly did not. But, I mean, it's a different breed, when it comes to playoff times, and I feel like Murray most certainly will most definitely get the start when it comes to that time. But I feel like even with Samsonov in the back end, the way he's been playing throughout the whole regular season, I mean, he's 23, 8 and 2, 915 save percentage. And when it comes to high danger saves, he's 898. And that's the best in the NHL, which means every single shot that should be going in, he's been grabbing. And when it comes to the team like the Toronto Maple Leafs, it's no it's obvious that we make some bad turnovers. I mean, we saw a couple sloppy plays when it came to the game against New Jersey. So, I mean, that's sometimes our kryptonite. So to have a guy like that in the crease, it really helps us out. So either way, I feel like going into the playoffs, it's gonna be a solid run for us. Don't you think? I'm excited for the playoffs. I really am.
I really do think with the way that the Lightning are playing right now, with the way the Leafs are playing right now, Toronto's going to be the favorite in that series. They're I don't want to say they're going to have home ice advantage or they'll likely have home ice advantage, but if the season ended right now, they would. And I think that's a big factor in that series because the three teams in the Atlantic, Boston, Toronto, Tampa Bay, those are the three best home teams in the NHL. So whoever's got home ice advantage, that's going to be huge. It will, though, no matter who's in net, Samsonov or Murray, it will seem like the Leafs are at a disadvantage between the pipes because Andre Vasilevsky's at the other end in a series against the Tampa Bay Lightning, and it only takes 4 Vasilevsky games to knock you out of the playoffs. So that's the one area of concern, is that if that guy just turns it on, it's curtains. But the Leafs right now are looking like the better team ahead of a potential series, a likely series between the Bolts and Maple Leafs.
Well, yes, I really hope we don't see another playoff series like last year when it came to the game 7, and we ended up losing that. So let's hope that doesn't happen. But I feel like statistically looking at the team this year, especially with all the new additions, because we've been saying it for so long, we need depth. We need depth. We need the back end to be stacked. And we haven't had that in so long. Even with the physicality, we haven't had a physical player in so long. But now we have a bunch of new additions. We have O'Reilly, we have Achari, we have Lafferty, we have McCabe. We got Shen now too, which he's back. So full circle on that one. What have been your thoughts on all the new additions that Dubas made for this team?
They definitely got better defensively. The O'Reilly injury, that stinks because you'd like to see him gain some chemistry before the playoffs start.
Mhm.
That's can sometimes be hard to pick up, especially when it's crunch time. Like you're not really gonna have any onboard time with O'Reilly. He played a few handful of games before getting hurt, and it doesn't sound like he'll be back with much runway before the postseason. But defensively, they're much better. McCabe, he's a legitimate top 4 defenseman, which is something the Maple Leafs didn't really have a whole lot of, at least a lot of proven legitimate top 4 defensemen. The addition of Gustafsson, he's more of an offensively minded guy and more of a rotational defenseman than your top 6 starter. But you had a guy like Shen who, in a series against a team like Tampa Bay, who plays a physical brand of hockey, that's going to pay off. Again, if you played the Bruins in the second round, that'll also be a big factor and a big bonus to have. And then Achari's another one of those bottom 6 forwards who can really muck it up. He's got good playoff experience. I really think Dubas filled a lot of holes on this Toronto team at the deadline, and they're a much stronger and deeper team that'll be more ready for the postseason.
Oh, it's going to be a run in the postseason. It really is. And with Bertuzzi too now on the Boston Bruins, that if we thought the Boston Bruins were already stacked and already physical with their edge, now with Bertuzzi added to that, if we end up taking on the Boston Bruins, that is going to be, excuse my French, but we're old enough here, a shit show. Honestly, it's going to be so physical. I can already imagine how many fights are going to be going on because of how much more depth we got and how much more physicality we got added to the team, which is something that we really need to see. I just hope we don't get suspensions. That's the tricky thing when it comes to the playoffs, and especially when you have physical players like a Bertuzzi or even a McCabe.
Yeah, and the Leafs, they know suspension all too well in the playoffs. You had Kadri getting suspended in those Bruins series. Those
Mhm.
are some big losses. But yeah, Boston was already this rough, tough, physical team. They've got some injuries. Taylor Hall, Nick Foligno, those guys are out right now. But you add a guy like Bertuzzi, you expect to have those guys back for the playoffs. They're gearing up for a deep run too. It was just one of these years where if Toronto's in any other division, they're fighting for first place. Instead, they've got a total slog to try to get through the Atlantic Division. Even Tampa Bay, a little more under the radar. Tanner Jeannot joining the Bolts. They gave up a lot to get him, but he brings another physical, nasty forward into a division that it just seems like you look up and down every roster, and every team's got these types of guys that are just going to go to war come postseason time. So I really do think the playoffs, those first 2 rounds, if it's Leafs Bolts and then Leafs Bruins, those are going to be just must see games.
Oh, 1000% they're gonna be must-see games, but a must-see game right now is going to be Saturday when the Edmonton Oilers come to town to take on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now it's kinda like a revenge game. I mean, the Leafs just lost 5-2 against Connor McDavid and the Oilers not too long ago. Their offense was shut down big time. They were not ready in that game whatsoever. So hopefully this Saturday it's going to be a different turnout. And it's always great to see Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid take on on the ice. It's always a show to see. But we do know that Austin Matthews hasn't been performing to his capability this year. Whereas Connor McDavid is literally on fire. What does this guy eat? He has 124 points. He is like on track to making it to 160. I mean, we got like I think 15 plus games left in the season. This guy posts like 2-3 points a game. So it's going to be so interesting to see if he makes it there or not. But looking at the teams right now statistically, who do you think has the edge? Edmonton or Toronto?
If I'm picking this game, I'm going to pick the Oilers. The line's already up at North Star Bets. The Oilers are underdogs in this game, but give me Edmonton. They have a losing winning percentage at home this year. They've been far better on the road, the Oilers. You saw it last night. They pick up a road win against the Boston Bruins. I mean, Boston had not lost in regulation after leading through the first 20 minutes of play, and the Oilers come back and beat them 3-2. Edmonton is looking really sharp. They've won 4 of their last 5. And you talk about teams that made additions at the deadline. Edmonton, maybe not flashy, but they filled a void on the back end in adding a guy like Matthias Ekholm, who not going to light the league on fire. You're not going to look at Ekholm and say, wow, he's really showing up in the stat sheet, but he's just going to give you solid minutes on the back end. And I think Edmonton, they finally have settled into who their starting goaltender is. It's Stuart Skinner. Jack
Mhm.
Campbell, they've given him too many opportunities to see him continue to get more and waste them because his
Yeah.
numbers are not good this year. Skinner has been really good. He kept the Bruins to 2 goals last night. He gave up 1 late at the end of the first. You think maybe that's going to be a tipping point. He held steady, didn't give up another goal for the final 2 periods of play. So I think Edmonton's really starting to find their game right now.
How about with a Hall and Ryan Nugent Hopkins matchup? Do we think that it's gonna happen again? Another fight, another scrap on the ice?
Yeah, you know what? That was weird. You don't see Nuge drop the gloves all that much. So seeing him get into it with Hall was kind of interesting. And you could say he got the best of him too. He looked pretty good in that fight, Nuge. So
He looked
uh,
really good in that fight. Hall stood no chance. I was seeing, like, these images after come in, I'm like, "This guy looked like he got eaten." It was so bad.
yeah,
Uh,
you don't see Nuge drop him, but he you know what? Maybe sent a message to everyone else. Don't mess with me. I can drop the mitts and fight.
yeah, yeah, don't mess with them. And the race in the West too is honestly, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy the race in the West. So, I mean, I feel like Edmonton too has the advantage because they're gonna wanna pull away from the rest of the team because it's super tight. But regardless, it's gonna be such a showdown, in Toronto this Saturday when the Oilers come to town. Thank you so much, Stevie, for joining me today on the Homestand NHL Show. I am your host, Celine Trimarchi, and have a great weekend. Lots and lots of hockey in store for you.